And we're live. Hi Suruchi. Hi Charit. Hi Adi. Another beautiful day from London, reporting live. It's actually getting hot now, which is good news. Okay, it still says, hold on, we're telling all your followers. So let's give it a minute. Hi Praneeth. Hi SK. What's up? How are you guys doing? Today's topic is writing and publishing. If you have any questions, you can start dropping them in the comment section. Or if you just want to talk about something else. Good morning, Kumar. Well, it's good afternoon here, but so we're going to be talking about writing. We're going to be talking to an author who's hi Charit, who's published his first creative fiction novel. He's also authored some other books. I'll give you a proper introduction. So in case you love writing and you've always been curious about what does it take to write a book, you're in the right place. Yeah. Okay. So let me give you a brief introduction, and while I add my guest, today's guest, he's a dear friend. We've studied together, and now he's the author of a lovely book. And hi Charit.
Hi Shailja.
How are you?
Everyone. Good. How are you?
Good. I was just giving a brief introduction. So I was just telling people that you've written 4 books now. And yeah, I know it sounds 4 books. So that's a huge accomplishment. And congratulations on your first fiction novel.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And Charit is also a very interesting person, because when you meet him, he will tell you all sorts of interesting, trivia about different things. So, yes, the drummer has written books. Yeah, he was in college. We studied together in college in engineering, and since then he's moved to Germany and he's pursued his career. And writing is just his passion. He's doing it on the side, and yeah. And today I have the privilege of having a little chat with the author himself. How are you doing in lockdown, Charit?
Oh, surprisingly well, because we don't have lockdown in Germany, fortunately. Life is going on as usual.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so business is operational as usual. Schools are the only things that are shut down, and a few other non-essential things. But most of the people still need to go to office and physically work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, not everybody gets the permission to work from home.
Okay.
I am one of the few lucky ones who works from home, only primarily I work from home. So there's no concept of office in my case, but most of the people I know, they still need to go to office and work from home.
Okay.
Yeah, but how is it for you guys in London?
Well, we had a lot of panic at the beginning of all this.
Expected.
Yeah, we had panic buying, and we had lots of people just not sending their kids to school even before a lockdown was officially announced, because the panic was building up. And then we did have a peak in the number of cases rising. So we've seen that initial bit of corona hitting us. Now I think we are more or less in lockdown. Schools are closed. All the non-essential services are closed. Yeah. So, but now I think we're getting used to this quarantine lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bringing that back to the topic, it's actually, I would say, probably one of the good things right now in terms of timing for releasing a book. Because Amazon actually got in touch with us and they said they're seeing a rise in the ebook sales because most of the people are home right now.
Yeah.
And there's only so much Netflix you can watch. Eventually, you will turn to old school books.
Absolutely. There's only so much Netflix you can watch.
Yeah, so they actually said, okay, we know that there's a subject that you're working on. They've heard from different sources, and they thought it would be the right time to release it right now because books have gone up.
Yes.
So we just joined that, that speeding train.
Yeah.
Okay, if we don't release it right now, we won't be able to get up there, in such a short span.
Yeah.
So we actually took this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wonderful. I must say, yeah.
There's
worked out.
Yeah, there's some positive things that are coming out of this current corona situation. And this is one of those situations, one of those
things, yeah.
One of those things, yeah. I mean, of course, most of the employees at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, where my book is right now live.
Yeah.
Most of the employees are not working right now. But fortunately, that has not affected us much because the ebook sales are still up there and it's all digital. So only the paperback is affected. The physical copy, the physical book.
And I can
back in the paperback because, and also not in all the countries. Germany, UK, the US, they're still printing them and shipping them with a lot of delay because it's non-essential. India primarily got hit hard because of the lockdown. So most of the printing presses, they are all shut down right now. Nobody's printing. So that was a market where we were initially very scared, because I'm originally from India. So my base would still be in India, although I live in Germany. The book itself is in English and more than 50% of the book is based in India. A lot of it outside, but I would say probably around 60-65% is based in India itself. It ties a lot to the history of India and all of those. So I was really scared that it would not sell in India. But surprisingly, although in terms of sales, US is still number one, where my book is selling. But in terms of reviews, India is number one. It's a very, very strange dynamic. Yeah, I hardly have reviews right now in the US as compared to India. Somehow
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. But the
so
sales
that means people even in India who want to read the book are managing to get their hands on a copy. Just goes to show. Yeah. And thank God for technology. I must say, during this quarantine, that's one thing I'm really thankful for, because without the internet, I don't know what life would look like right now.
Oh, yes.
And the fact that we can connect like this via screen and just chat and read a book and, do a few meditations online, it's amazing.
I tell you, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because we recently had a literary fest hosted by my agent.
Okay.
So a quick shout out to my agent, Suhail Mathur, and the Book Bakers. So it's a wonderful team. They're actually the best in India in terms of literary agencies. So if you ever have a book that you would like to release, I would not advise you to self-publish. I would say find an agent and find a very good agent.
That's a good. We'll talk a little bit more about publishing at the end, towards the end also, because I think a lot of people, like I was telling you earlier, a lot of my friends and the wider circle are interested in writing. Right. And to be very honest, a lot of us in school and all, we've scribbled notes and we've had that sort of a tendency to, use writing as a medium to vent out our thoughts and everything. So yes, the whole journey from there to publishing a book, like you're saying, the little tips of not self-publishing, looking for a publisher, those are amazing. And I think all of us are taking notes from you. And and we'll definitely get back in touch with you when we need more help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? Like, what is it about, and just the plot and the premise, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the book starts off in Germany.
Okay.
It may have something to do with the fact that I live in Germany.
I suspect so.
But it's basically two molecular geneticists who try to discover, new ways to do some clones splicing and just joining two different DNA together and creating new organisms. Just trying to find out and experiment. And they have a research which they reach a dead end in that research, and they're not able to go further. They look for answers, and it's been at a dead end for months, and they don't know what to do. They're looking for answers. So they go in different directions around Europe, searching for answers, and finally they find what they think could be an answer to their problem. So surprisingly, those answers are in the Vedas, something that you least expect.
Yeah.
So they actually find a historian in India, and they reach out to her. They go, they meet her, who has been recommended by a very famous Indologist. And they have ties with a certain dictator who used to live in Germany in the past, which has created, and that is the reason why it has become such a huge controversy. And that's why the book has been removed in certain countries, and then
really?
Yeah, and the cover that initially.
I love the cover, by the way, I must say.
Yeah, so the cover right now is slightly tweaked version of the original cover. So the original cover is what caused the controversy. And then some people have read the contents of the story, and they think I'm trying to, do some kind of propaganda to a certain dictator.
Okay, I get it.
That's why, yeah. I mean, I can show you the old cover. This is basically the first copy I got.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, I think you can tell why it created controversy. And the book cover that right now, Amazon has not sent me the book yet. I've only seen the digital version of it, and that the cover looks slightly different than this one.
Okay.
It looks slightly different, and that's one. One thing that they finally agreed on. They said, okay, fine, we can use this. We can still keep the content, the story as it is, just very minor tweaks, because there was a lot of hate messages on social media and all that.
Oh, wow.
For the controversy, and people thinking, this is...
Charit, one published book and a controversy down.
There was a lot of controversy. Yeah, I mean, there's still sometimes I get hate messages on Instagram, like from certain religious groups and a few.
It's interesting to see how the mind reacts, no? Even though it's a work of fiction, and it's and although the second part of the story, like you were telling us, it's based in India, and it leans on the Vedic traditions and those culture that we have, but still the mind. It's very interesting to see how the mind is just picking on those things that are,
Yeah. So to get into, I mean, I won't talk about the details of the book itself, because
please don't, because I'm yet to read it.
But the content, for most of the people who are watching us, also the content is still very close to the original book that has been released. So you will still get the same story. Nothing has been removed. It's just the cover that has been changed. There's hardly anything that has been edited. Yeah. And it's primarily because of certain religious groups and experts, and
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how the Vedic side of it? You just mentioned the Vedas, and how do you go into that space, and where does your story, like, did you do your research on the Vedas, and how did you go into that space?
Yeah, so before I started writing the book, or before I even had the idea to write the book, I had zero knowledge of the Vedas. Or I had like basic knowledge.
Like most of us, yes.
Yeah, so nothing, absolutely. But then this was one day where I was alone home. I was trying to sleep, and I was in half asleep state, and I was kind of dreaming, maybe in an active mind. I'm not sure, but it was like a dream basically, and that's how it all started. No jokes, no exaggeration.
Wow.
It was a dream where I was thinking, okay, in my dream I was thinking, gods, especially in our Indian mythology, they show gods blue in color.
Yeah.
But then some people, or most of the people, say it's just a representation of their dark skin tone. They were not actually blue. But in my dream, they were actually blue. Their skin tone was actually blue. So I was thinking, and then in my head, in my dream, the logic was that the radiation on their skin from wherever they come from was in a different way compared to the radiation that we have. So their skin, or they themselves, evolved differently than we did.
Interesting.
So then I was like, oh, so it could be that maybe they came from a different part of the universe.
Yeah.
So that's how the idea started.
That's how the whole thing started.
Yeah, and then
so
I
interesting.
digging in deeper and deeper and deeper, and then I read a lot of these translations of Vedic scripts, and then I was like, oh, there's actually a lot of knowledge here, which is kind of lost. Most of us don't know, but actually we can use those in modern time research. And that was the inspiration, basically.
Amazing. And like you're saying, although I'm also from India, and we are from that culture and tradition, and we've heard our parents and our grandparents and everybody quote the Vedas and give us some of those bits and pieces of knowledge, but very truly and honestly speaking, how much do we really know? So that's so interesting that is what sparked the seed of the story, and that's how you developed that. Amazing.
Exactly.
I think we're getting some questions also, and I myself would like to know. So from the day you had the dream to this day of getting your published book in your hand, what's the time frame like?
So this was, I think, I don't remember when the dream was, but I remember when I started writing the book. It was in January 2015.
Okay.
So the prologue in my book actually starts on the 15th of Jan 2015, because that was when I actually started writing the book. Yeah, so if you read the book, it's actually from a time scale when I started writing the book, and it evolves in a similar fashion. So 2015, I started writing, my first page was the prologue, and I haven't done a lot of research. I kept researching as I went along. Basic research I have done, but it did get much deeper than I thought it would. For the book's own benefit. And then 2016, I had this major writer's block that I was talking to you about earlier. Yes. So I had this major writer's block in 2016. I was only done with half the book, and I had like 75,000, which in probably not even 75,000. I was probably at between 50 and 60, I would say. Yeah, so it would have been half as thick as it is right now, the book, if I stopped there. I could stop it there, but it didn't have the ultimate climax that I wanted, like a twist that I needed for the book. It would have probably been still a good book, but not the same scale. And so I just put it aside. I was like, no, I'm going to wait till I get the idea. Instead of releasing it right now, I'm not happy with how it is. I need it to be perfect. So I waited.
Yeah, you need a little bit more time.
Yeah, so I waited. And that's when the Greece vacation happened. And in Greece, I was at this museum. And that's where I started seeing a few artifacts which are actually taken from India back in the day. And we're talking about like 1200 BC, 800 BC, and like ancient. And including people like Pythagoras and all those guys who were actually in India when they came up with the Pythagorean theorem that we know about, and their knowledge of Krishna and Balram and all those things were basically adopted to their local customs. Like Krishna's story has been adopted, so the people in Greece would understand that story, and they just changed it slightly, made him Hercules. So Hercules was actually a literal translation of Krishna. And all those things, actually, when I started seeing those in that museum, I was like, oh, I didn't even know all this. Nobody told me. I mean, it's probably famous in certain parts of the world, but not to me. So that gave me the missing link in my story. And then I was able to write the remaining half of the book. And it took me another 1 1.5 year approximately. So 2018 August was when I was finally done. So
finally done.
15th of Jan 2015 till August sometime 2018.
Wow. Okay.
So more than 3 years.
And okay, and when you started writing the book, obviously you had the seed of an idea and you fleshed it out. While you were writing, did you change it? Did you feel like the character needs to change or the plot needs to change? Was it like a fluid thing, or did you, like you're saying, you had a breakthrough in Greece when you when you went to a museum and you had those thoughts? But did the plot change, or were you always like, how does it work?
Yeah, so the initial book is actually, I would say, 4 times as thick as this one.
Okay.
A lot of it had to be chopped off. And I've heard many authors saying the same thing, and I thought, yeah, how can that be? You know, you're writing 10 pages and then you have to throw away 9 of those pages, really.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's exactly what happened. So it was pretty fluid. I mean, my idea started coming, forming by itself. Words started coming.
Okay.
I didn't have to like think that much. I had done my research before I started writing. Most of the time. Like every page I wrote, I've done the research and then started writing.
Okay.
Every dialogue, I imagined those characters talking to each other. And I imagined how the character would look like. Was she a dark-skinned girl? Was she fair? Did he have dark hair? Did he have blonde hair? You know, all of those things. I imagined the whole scene, and then I started writing just like the way I imagined.
Okay.
So yes, the characters have. Surprisingly, the characters have not changed much. So, including the initial names that I gave them, you know, just the rough draft names. I was going to change the names eventually, but I showed it to a test group, and the group liked it. So I just stuck with those original names. The way I built the characters also remained. The story changed. The story definitely changed.
The plot.
It evolved a lot. Yeah. Every time I showed a few chapters to my editor or to a test group, they gave me certain feedback, so I changed it according to that, sent it back, came back. So it was like a long process.
Wow.
It was a long process. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that you showed it to your editor and a test group. If I may ask, during this whole process of writing a book, when did you decide, okay, fine, I need to start working towards getting an editor, getting a publisher, and getting that sort of resources and infrastructure set for your book so that you can then keep on just focus on the writing process of it? When did you do that?
About 60 to 70% of the book. Once I was done with about 60 to 70%. I was not done with the end yet, but I knew how the story would end. I just didn't finish writing it. But meanwhile, somebody recommended an editor who previously worked for BBC, and he had time. So I had to capitalize on that. She had time, so I didn't wait. So I spoke to her. She said, yeah, I have a project coming up in a couple of months. I just have like 2 months time. So I was like, okay, now is the time. If I lose it now, if I lose the window now, I won't get her again. So, and having seen her previous record of working with BBC and all that, I was like, okay, I want her. And she did the first 2 chapters just to see if we are aligning if we're on the same page. And we were perfectly aligned. So I was like, okay, I need her. So I just kept my pace of writing the book as she started from the beginning. So I continued. So I would go back, I would revisit, I would see what changes she made, and I would adapt the story accordingly.
So it was a continuous process. There were many iterations.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. And sometimes we had to like replace chapters because that made more sense.
Oh, okay.
Like chapter 53 belonged all the way up. So once you move the chapter up, you have to like change a lot of things.
Edit everything accordingly.
Edit everything, yes. Dialogue change. The character probably had a scar much later. Now the scar had to come off. He probably lost some blood. Now that has to be replaced by something else.
Wow.
Everything changes like a movie, almost like the screenplay.
Coming to a movie, this sounds exactly like a movie book. So any plans to sell the rights and make a movie out of this, or maybe?
I don't know.
It sounds so interesting. Let me tell you that it does.
Very much. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely love to see it visually, just to compare my own visual imagination of the on the screen and compare.
Translated
I would love to see that. I just never thought about it. I don't know. I don't know. I need to really think about that.
I think we need to start thinking in that direction.
I'm open to offers though.
So anybody listening to this, please, he's open to movie offers. Contact me.
Yes.
Because I haven't got my grease cut yet.
We'll talk about it.
I'm just joking. Okay, and I also want to know that about the artwork. Once you decided and once the publishing was, in the works, when did you decide? How did you come about with the artwork? Because I found, for me personally, when you put up that post of your book, the first post that you put in, for me, the most eye-catching thing was the artwork and the name of it.
Right.
Because in this genre, in fiction and fantasy, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that as well, what the difference is from a very technical standpoint. What's the difference between fantasy and fiction?
Yes. So first to the cover itself. I've been to a lot of bookstores. I took a look at a lot of covers, and I found that most of the covers look like each other. There is a person. There's usually a character. Either a protagonist or antagonist, and there's sometimes a girl, maybe not, or it's just a villain or somebody wearing a hoodie, or it's just a background of a landscape. But they had the same formula, more or less. Now, if you go to a bookstore, and if you're looking at books that look more or less similar to each other, except for one book which was bright orange. I like that book actually, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I love that book.
Yeah, so I was bright orange, neon orange with black font. That was lovely. That caught my attention immediately, and that had nothing on it. It was just orange with it's a revamped cover. It's not the original cover. It's not the original. It's a revamped cover, and then I was like, now amongst all the books, that book stood out. I was thinking, okay, so I want my book to stand out too, and especially if you're a debut author, you have some big sharks to compete against, right? You have George Orwell to compete against. You have Dan Brown to compete against. And why would anybody invest their valuable time in buying a no-name author's book, right? So either the book has to stand out, and we know that you should not cover the book. You should not judge the book by its cover. But in reality, people do that.
You do pick up, absolutely.
Yeah, so I just tried different covers by myself. I just designed it by myself, and I was thinking, okay, now that looks catchy. That doesn't look catchy. Okay. Should it be complete black? Should it be just one color? And then I tried different fonts, and then I'm a minimalist, so I like minimalist designs. So I just went for the most minimalist design: black, white, a hint of red somewhere, and that's it.
Nice.
Yeah, and at the back of the cover itself, there's actually a hidden painting, which is very hard to see. So inside, behind the font, behind the darkness, there's a gray image.
Now I have to buy the book. I was just thinking I'll get the ebook.
Yeah,
I better get my hands on a copy now.
Yeah, so this image is actually an image of an actual painting that I've done of Shiva. Long ago, 2014 is when I did the painting, but it's actually a painting that I'm very connected to. I love that painting. It's my own painting.
To those who've just joined or who don't know this about Charit, he's an amazing artist as well. And I've seen some of his work, and like he's saying, he loves his Shiva painting, but some of his works are stunning. Like there's a tiger one that I love that you know about. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled.
It's quite a creative soul today.
You can actually see that picture in my Instagram posts. It's one of the painting, the original painting of the back of the cover. It's in my Instagram post.
Amazing.
Just combined all of those into everything that I love. I put onto the book.
Yeah, amazing. So tell us a little bit about your writing process. Do you write during the mornings? Do you write during the nights? Do you have a set routine that you follow? Do you sit down very disciplined? Do you have a time slot? Do you write on your laptop? Like what does it look like when Charit is writing? Is nobody allowed to enter the room?
Excellent question. That's actually a very important question for for anybody who's trying to write. So I've had this problem in the beginning too, because I'm a debut author. I've done like 3 small non-fiction books before that, but those were all pretty easy. This one was a challenge. This one is where I had to really concentrate, probably listen to some music, but I had to like sit at my desk. But the one thing I lack is discipline. So I was watching videos of Dan Brown, and there are a few other authors who said that they have a routine. You know, they make sure that every day in the morning they wake up at 5 o'clock. They have a bulletproof coffee. Dan Brown makes a bulletproof coffee, and and every 90 minutes they take a break. They come back, they do push-ups, and they continue writing. And they're writing.
Oh my God!
At least 50 pages a day. And I was like, oh, do I really have to do that? And I'm telling you, I have done none of those.
I was going to say, if you say that you've done that.
None of those. But I know that 90% of the authors actually have a very disciplined routine.
Yes, they do.
I had none of those. I did not make myself a bulletproof coffee. I had the most easiest, simplest press button coffee. And I woke up whenever I wanted to wake up. And I wrote whenever I had time. You know, sometimes it was
my kind of author.
Yeah, sometimes it was like 12 in the night, or during lunch break, or just when I was bored, or when I had an idea. What I would do is when I was watching a movie or reading something, and
you would jot it down.
I would just write it down immediately.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would just take out my phone and record it. I would talk and record my own voice with the idea.
Yeah.
The next day I would just play that, and I would just write that down.
That's an interesting thing. Whenever you get an idea or something that you want to work on. I've heard actually a lot of people do that, especially when they're trying to flesh out a character. If they get some ideas about a character's quirks or background about the character, they just write it down and then they read later on, flesh it out. Yeah, that's a good tip.
I recommend doing that, because I
highly
did not do
recommend
that in the beginning and I forgot what I was thinking about. What was that? I was thinking about something yesterday and it was a great idea. And I'm like, oh no. It's gone.
God. All right. Okay. I've seen some questions. We'll just go through those. And Abhigyan has said, basically proves the fact that grade point averages are overrated.
Oh, yes.
It totally does.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We couldn't agree more.
3 points from one.
Great.
barely came out alive.
Please, you can't say that. Okay, Shrikant has asked, how long does it take to write a book? But I think we've spoken about that. And then, let's see. Y2030 has asked, how do I become a better writer?
Oh, okay. Good question. I'm constantly trying to be a better writer too. When I revisit some of my works, I'm like, oh, I could have improved it. I could have done something. And one thing I advise is just use a test group. Show that book to a few people, collect feedback and constructive feedback. Now, if you will always find people who will say, oh, this is shit, just throw it away. But never give up. And there's always feedback is very valuable. So what I do personally is every morning, just out of curiosity, I read all the reviews that I get on Amazon, Goodreads, or any other platform which is there. I just, type the name of my book and I see the latest reviews. And the first ones I visit are either the 3 stars or the 1 stars, the least.
Okay, yeah. To see what they've got to say.
Yeah, to see what they've got to say. And that actually helps a lot, because they are people with different perspectives. Not cater to everybody, but maybe some of those are actually our own shortcomings, and those are things that we can work on, we can improve. But yes, definitely, that's one thing, because improving writing is a very broad term. It's a very broad concept. Because every genre will have a different writing style. I have my own writing style. Fortunately, thank God, some people liked it, because I hardly read books. So that probably helped me. I've in my entire life, I probably read like 10 books. Yeah, and
Who are your favorite authors?
oh,
What
hands
books do you
down,
like?
out of those 10 books, I mean, it's not a lot. Out of those, I'm going to say Dan Brown.
Yeah.
Dan Brown is amazing. Yeah, so he's also an inspiration for me to write a book. Yeah, his books are just simply amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, the research he puts in, and what I like the most is the way he tries to combine science and religion. It's the same ideology most of us have, but tries to put it into words and explain it to somebody, and he can do a very good job at that. So.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of times people, well, that's my standpoint. A lot of times people think that science and religion are at loggerheads with each other, that they're opposing each other. But funnily enough, I find that a lot of things are actually working together. If you look at, like you're saying, some concepts, if you look at science, and you look at like even simple things like why our mothers told us to drink, turmeric milk at night. It's not a religious thing, it's just a culture thing. But then now you know why you need to have, what's the active ingredient in haldi and all of that. So yeah, it's interesting that you see that. There's one more question. Let me scroll up. What did you learn? What is that question? I think I can't seem to scroll. Oh, there. What would you say is your interesting writing quirk? Sushant is asking that.
Oh. Wow. Everything. I mean, sometimes it's very strange. Sometimes because writer's block is something that happens to everybody. It's not fictional. It's reality. You get to a point and you're like, how do I go now? Where do I go now? Sometimes simple things like music helps. So I was playing. It's not the exact answer to your question, but somewhere in that ballpark. So
yeah, somewhere in the same ballpark.
Yeah. So there was something someone forwarded to me which said some kind of music for concentration, and especially for writers. And I was like, let me give it a try. I was listening to that, and that actually accelerated my thought process somehow.
Wow.
And then that, I don't know, it may work for some, it may not work for some, but it worked for me. It's maybe placebo, I don't know.
So music.
Music. So I was able to imagine my villain in the book much better with music. Yeah. So I was able
Interesting.
There's something, music can help if you to imagine a few things. Yeah. So music is something that I most of the time play when I'm writing a book.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Even I like to have music at the back when I'm especially trying to concentrate on something. And my husband finds it so weird. He's like, how can you have two things? How can you do two things at once? And I'm like, well, that's part of being a woman, but better writer. And then somebody else has asked, Gurnam has asked, how much time did it take to finish the book? I think we've spoken about that. There's another question that says, what was one of the most interesting things you've learned in creating your books?
Yes, one of the most interesting things I've learned is the ability of the human body to sit in the same position for hours, losing track of time.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you'll be surprised, especially if you are like into it. Some chapters where I was like, especially writing about the villain. I lost track of time. I would look at the clock and 3 hours were gone. And for me, it would feel like 3 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating. I would write maybe just 5 pages, but 3 hours would be gone. Yeah, and that was very surprising for me to learn that it can happen when you're doing something you enjoy.
Pavan is asking, what do you think makes a good story?
What makes it a good story? The many things: characters, the plot, the villain. The villain can dictate the whole story. Yeah, he can change everything. Yeah, it's definitely. But basically, characters, plot,
and how they build together, mesh together.
That is something that can make a bad story turn into a good story.
It's interesting to say that, because every good story, I was also thinking, while you was talking about it, I was also thinking, every good story that I know, that I love, has a villain, like you're saying, has some dark characters. And obviously it has the hero and the protagonist who'll save the world and all of that. So it's
Yep.
amazing how opposite values in nature,
That
yeah,
actually
they're
reminded
complementary.
Yeah, that actually reminded me of a question you asked previously, which I did not answer.
Yeah.
The difference between fantasy and fiction, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is actually something that's common in both fantasy and fiction.
Hmm.
Villain. You take Lord of the Rings, there's a
Hmm.
villain. You take any Marvel movie, for example, there's a
Yeah.
villain. There's always a villain, and it's always
Avengers.
one person fighting against
Against.
at least a gang, yeah.
Yeah.
And so who is actually the more powerful character? There's one person you're fighting, and then there are 10 people on the other side. Isn't the one person, or are the 10 people the weight of the book? It's usually the one person who is the weight of the book.
Yeah, who carries it.
Who carries it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
the difference, fantasy is usually, it has characters, sometimes fictional characters, but characters which are not tangible, or there's certain things which are not tangible. There's not much physics that you can rely on in fantasy, not necessarily. And sometimes you have characters from European folklore, or like dragons, for example, you don't find in real life. Fiction, on the other hand, you have things which are more tangible. There's a likelihood that they will happen in our real world. Marvel, again, a good example. You see a few characters in Marvel, for example, where you know where the propulsion, if Iron Man is flying, you know where the propulsion is coming from, more or less.
Yeah.
So that's a simple way to explain the difference between.
That makes sense. Yeah. So, would you say fiction is something that's is more closer to real life, and fantasy is something that's.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So fiction is definitely something that you and me can imagine happening in our world. But fantasy is usually something that is not happening in our world. And the likelihood of that happening is almost, I would say, zero even.
Yeah.
But some people do a good job, of mixing fantasy and fiction.
Yeah.
Again, a good example is Marvel. Where they get Norse mythology into the real world,
they pick on all different,
and they mix it very well. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Not the audience won't accept it all the time.
I also want to know what did it feel like when you actually had your first published copy of your book in your hand, and when the whole process was done with, and that you can now sit back and just this is your baby now, it's out in the world. Now you just have to let go. How was that?
Good question again. So it's funny, right? When you write a book, you're already imagining the final product being in your hands and looking at it, and very filmy, probably a tear rolling down your cheek. But in reality, at least this was my experience. So Amazon delivered my author's copy, and it had this big bold print on it that said "Not for resale, author's copy only."
Okay.
And but anyway, that did not bother me. But the first thing I removed and I looked at it was, is the print okay? Is the color okay? How's the quality of the page? And I was just flipping through the pages very quickly, and then after 10 minutes, I was like, wait, I need to just take this moment and enjoy that for myself, right? But I guess in reality, this is what happens. Most of the time, the authors are just trying to make sure that the book is as perfect as it can be before they actually start enjoying it.
Yeah. It's also such a labor of love, no? So
yes.
You're constantly in that zone of, oh my God, is this okay? Oh my God, is that okay? So,
oh yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So let me just see if there are any more. Oops, what just happened?
Yeah, we lost you.
And I'm back. I don't see any more questions. Yeah. before I let you go, I have to ask, apart from Marvel, what inspires you, and what's next for the author in you?
For the author. So I always keep telling people this, right? I studied engineering, and I'm more like in terms of career in the science field.
Yeah.
But my heart is always in arts. I like painting, I like music, drumming, that.
Yeah.
I play the drums, and I like writing books now, and I like painting. This is always where my heart is going to be. So what next is, this book, if you read it.
There's a clue in it, is it?
There is a clue in it, yes.
Ooh.
There's definitely a clue in it. Especially once you come towards the end, you'll know, okay, this is not the end.
Part 2.
Maybe a part 3. We don't know.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, but I can tell you one thing. I have not started working on the part 2 yet. That is something I can tell you. Yes.
Yeah.
But this is not the conclusion. This is just a beginning of at least a trilogy, minimum.
As long as it's in your head, I'm not really worried when it will come out. As long as, yeah.
And I know how that book is going to end too.
Oh, lovely.
I just don't know. I know the start.
Man, I'm telling you, let's make a movie out of this.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Would love to see
or
that.
A Netflix special. Netflix, are you listening?
Or Amazon Prime. I'm fine with
Amazon Prime, yes.
Amazon has been really nice to me, so I will help them. Yeah. They've been very, very nice in this entire journey. Of course, Amazon and my agent, both of them have been.
Takes a team, no?
It does. And anybody who wants to be a writer and wants to do it alone, there are a lot of people who self-publish and they do the marketing and everything by themselves, but it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a full-time job, and I would rather have a person, an expert in that field, do that.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Than figuring it out all on your own while writing the book.
Exactly. Yeah. So Suhail Mathur from Bookbakers. So that's for example, one suggestion I can
give.
Shout out. Something that can help you out if he likes to something. Yeah. Very picky though.
Yeah.
He'll only take it if he really likes it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Charit, for taking time out from your busy schedule. I know you wear a lot of hats, and even though you're at home, I know you're keeping yourself really busy. Thank you so much. It was a lovely chat.
Thank you for having me.
We've spoken for a nice long time.
Yeah, surprising.
Yes,
exactly.
So everybody watching or who've tuned in, I'm going to post the link to his book as well, so that you can all go and grab a copy. He shared the links with us. If you have any more questions, or if you just want to have a chat with him, I'm sure he's more than happy to talk about his book, about writing in general. So I'll link his profile as well, and then you can drop him a line. Yeah. Thank you so much, Charit. All the best. Waiting for the movie and waiting for part 2.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Bye. Take care.
You too.
Bye.